Saturday, December 16th. Chicago Street Theater is located at 154 West Chicago Street in downtown Valparaiso. For more information, go to www.chicagostreet.org. For reservations, call 219-464-1636, extension 1. And remember, no man is a failure who has friends.
Thank you, Kelly. With us today is Rebecca Reiner. Welcome to the show, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Do you like being called Rebecca? Or...
I've been Rebecca for about 30 years.
Okay,
yeah.
Well, you're Rebecca, or you're Rebecca then. Rebecca is a Valparaiso native, a graduate from VHS and IU, and a mother of 2 grown daughters. After living on the coast of Maine for 25 years, she returned to Valpo in 2005 for what was supposed to be a 1-year leave to help her folks out. I could really appreciate that, did the same thing. The 1-year leave became permanent move, one she didn't regret. When she moved back, she knew that she wanted to step outside of the traditional K-12 classroom and use her 30 years of teaching and school leadership experience to do something different. When she learned about Portage Adult Education, a comprehensive 6-county-wide adult education program, she was hooked and was hired as the program assistant director. When the program was slated to be shut down in 2011, she founded Neighbors Educational Opportunities, otherwise NEO, to continue the essential alternative high school and adult education programs that had been part of the region's educational landscape for 49 years. That's impressive.
They didn't make it to 50.
Yeah. So Rebecca is also an active member of Project Neighbors. By the way, is our parent company who actually runs the radio station, and NWI Urban League. Well, welcome again, Rebecca.
Thank you, Bill.
So, how was your day today?
My day was quiet. It was the day before the term ended at high school, so students were finishing up finals and getting out early, so it was a lovely day, very quiet.
Great. Well, we're going to begin talking about how NEO came to be. And there's 2 entities to NEO. There's the New Vista High School, and there's the Adult Education Program. So do you want to spend some time and just orient us on how these 2 came to be?
Sure. I mean, as you said in the beginning, Portage Adult Education was a huge, the second largest adult education program in the state of Indiana. And it was run by Portage Township Schools for 49 years, and they decided over a phase of 2 years to get out of that program and end those services. And there was a huge outcry from the community because this program had provided services to thousands every year. And so I raised my hand and jumped into the water and formed a nonprofit group, and with a lot of community support, moved forward with a proposal to run the adult education program, but also to deliver the high school that had been run by Portage High School as a charter high school, because that was the only way that the funding would support this alternative high school model. And so we're going on our 6th year, and we received our 5-year reauthorization last year from Ball State for the high school. And our adult education program continues to grow and is pretty amazing.
Okay, now for those who are not familiar where this is located, do you want to give us an idea where, and actually what a lot of people may recognize is what it used to be before?
Right. So for many years, for the first 6 years of our life, we continued in the same building on Central Avenue that had housed Portage Adult Education. And when the school corporation said they wanted the building back, we had to find another home. And long story short, our realtor found that Camelot Bowling Alley on Route 6 was going to be sold. And it was a very large building, larger than we needed. But the owners were very motivated because they had students or children that had graduated from our program. And one thing led to another, and we bought Camelot Bowling Alley in April of 2015. Started renovation 4 days after we closed, and 4 months later we were moving in. It was a pretty miraculous transformation, under budget.
And this is also part of a Project Neighbor, right?
Project Neighbor, so when we had to start the process of writing our charter proposal, we had to become our own entity as a nonprofit. And so Project Neighbors, I was one of the board members, and 2 other board members, we formed our own corporation. And to get us started, we also had to have funds to pay staff. And so we needed to have a line of credit. So Project Neighbors gave us a line of credit to get us started until the reimbursement process started for the adult education funds to kick back in.
So they offered a helping hand.
They were huge, yes.
That's it. And for those of you who are not familiar with Project Neighbors, they've done a lot of things, like Hilltop House is one of their initiatives. This radio station is actually one of their initiatives. So they're into a lot of community outreach projects. So let's talk a little bit more about the high school. We'll break this up into segments and start with the high school, which is New Vista. How does New Vista High School differ from any other high school?
Well, there's probably more similarities than there are differences. It is a free public high school. Students do get a Core 40 diploma. We do have, all of our teachers have to be licensed. Students have to take the same graduation exams and have the same course requirements that other high schools have. We do have to have 180 days. We actually offer more hours of the day because we have day and nighttime programs. But the core requirements of high school is the same for us. The difference is that we do not have age limits. So a student that is 40 years old or 24 years old or 19 years old can come back and re-enter. And we also have continuous points of entry, so a student can start with us anytime. We do have trimesters and we have summer school, but we have facilities to have them come in. If it's in the middle of the term, they can start with some coursework online under supervision of a teacher.
Okay, and we're going to get into a little bit later about the differences between the adult ed and the New Vista High School, because New Vista is more of a alternative school, right?
Yeah, and I think that our students always say, don't use the word alternative when talking about New Vistas, because there's a connotation that I think the community has that an alternative high school is for students that have had behavior problems. And really, for us, it's a mandate that we have to keep class sizes to 15-1. So students that have fallen through the cracks in other high schools find that the biggest benefit to New Vistas is that there is a smaller class size. Education, the instruction is very personalized. So if a student is an honor student, and we do get honor students, and they need to have an accelerated program or a more in-depth program, that personal attention can be given, as well as a student that needs a lot of remediation.
So which leads me into the next question I'm thinking about here. So if you could step us through the process of what are the requirements to enter the school? Is there a pre-testing? Do you have a social worker that does testing for the entrance to level the student out, or how does that work exactly?
So for the high school, basically it's like the entrance to any other high school. The difference with New Vistas, because it is a charter, we do not have the geographical boundary restrictions. And so a student, as long as they can prove that they're an Indiana resident, can enroll in New Vistas High School. We require the transcripts from if they have been in school before. We are getting some students that choose this as their first choice. But if they have transferred from another school, we get their credits. We sit down one-on-one with the student and their parents, if they're under 18 with their parents. We analyze their transcript. We also look at what their needs are. Some of our students have children or work obligations. And so another part of us being an alternative high school is we can offer a flexible schedule. So if they can't get there till 10 o'clock and they need to leave at 2, we offer that schedule. If they need to come at nighttime, we have that schedule. And so we really work with what their needs are in terms of transportation, in terms of work, in terms of family obligations.
So this would be ideal for a person who maybe has a work obligation, is working during the day or maybe shift work at night, and is looking for a way to complete their high school education, but still obviously they need to keep their job. And so you work around those issues with their schedule, whether it be daycare and what have you.
And we do have daycare. Well, this year we're on hold on that, but we have always had daycare too to offer the parents, so on-site daycare.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So that as they're attending, they
Right.
You could have their children right there.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
that's great.
And you asked about social workers. So we do have probably much more, a better ratio. We have a full-time guidance counselor. So for 260 students, a full-time guidance counselor. Plus we have a social worker. Plus we also have a college and career coordinator who serves as that guidance counselor, helping counsel students on college or careers.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I wanted to get into. So, and you spoke about this at the beginning, but how does the curriculum differ? Being that it's a flexible schedule, are there courses that are designed specifically around that flexibility?
So we do have the standard classes that everybody has to take, your algebra, your English classes, your social studies, everything else. But if a student comes to us and, for example, they come to us during this next term and they need to have economics, and that's not being taught by a teacher that term, and they need that to graduate and that's all they need, then we do have a full online curriculum, Play-Doh lab, so they can do some of those courses under the supervision of a licensed teacher and get that credit through those courses. And that Play-Doh lab has many electives that we do not offer, but so they can have a whole slew of career and vocational classes as well.
And for those people who are maybe not familiar with Play-Doh, and I happen to know it because I remember the way our alternative school at Valparaiso used Play-Doh. Play-Doh is a self-paced program, if you will. They actually is a computer-based program where they go at their own pace, so to speak. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, and they can test out of things. So if a student has the knowledge of certain modules and they test out of it, then it can advance them at their own pace.
Yeah.
And they can also work at home. They have to do all their testing under the guidance of a proctor. But so for students that are trying to make up on some credits, if they're motivated, they can work on those classes at home, and as soon as they're finished with one of their courses and test out of that satisfactory, they can start another class. So some students have the real capacity of gaining those credits that they were behind on.
Right, and talking about dual credit courses and advanced courses, what about the advanced courses? Do you offer anything in the lines similar to like an AP or?
We do have access on Play-Doh for some of the AP classes, but what we're really moving into is our dual credit. So right now we have some of our classes, we have child development, we have Spanish, we have advanced manufacturing, and we're moving into certified nurse aides. So some of our career and technical education classes are dual credits, and we are moving with our teachers. So many of our teachers who have their masters, we are having them apply for and become eligible to teach dual credit classes in some of the core subjects as well.
Okay, so can you compare so why would a student, because I know Valpo has their alternative school, what would be the benefit of attending the New Vista as opposed to the alternative school that may be within the school? Are there advantages?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that we've really looked at as more and more of our high schools around us have formed these alternative high schools, and those are almost all computer-led, or classes are being delivered on computers. Many of our students don't do well with just a computer-based program. And so for New Vistas, they offer all these teacher-directed classes and a huge amount of support from our teachers. So the kids that can't do well on these computer-based classes solely, it offers a real sense of a community and a family and teacher-led classes.
So we're going to get back to a couple of those things, but one thing I have a question about is listening to the uniqueness of New Vista and how it could be a big benefit for someone as opposed to attending an alternative school in their own school. What is the demographic breakdown in New Vista? What does it look like? Where do they come from? And you said this is primarily Indiana. Do you have some anomalies out there that
no,
folks
students
coming over?
have to be they have to be an Indiana resident. And we probably have the most diverse student body and the most diverse faculty. I think we're probably the envy of most schools because we do have that diversity. 55% of our students come from Porter County communities, primarily Portage, Chesterton, and Valpo, obviously the biggest ones. And the other 45% come from Lake County, primarily Lake Station and Hobart. Some Gary, but not as many from Hammond or Griffith or Maryville. But
so it's amazing. So it's Let's move on into the adult ed now. So if you will, before we get into adult ed, just explain the differences between the two programs.
Okay.
Because there are some similarities, but I mean, they're tailored to different types. I mean, from what I heard you say is there's a wide age group that goes to New Vista. So if I'm a 30-year-old man, would behoove me to go into New Vista or go into the adult ed program?
So when students come in, like if you were that person coming in, we would sit down with you and look at your transcripts, and we would look at your work schedule and your obligations and see what would be the best pathway. So the difference is New Vistas offers a high school diploma, and some dual credits. The adult education program offers students a high school equivalency diploma, which is what used to be called the GED, but the adult education program also offers remediation for apprenticeship programs, preparation for college, preparation for workplace exams, English as a second language, citizenship classes, and workforce training. So the adult education world is much broader and more comprehensive.
So,
but the 30-year-old student that wants a high school diploma could come to our high school and get his high school diploma. We would just say, what's the best path for you? So if a student comes to us at 30 and has 4 out of the 40 credits that they need, and they're working full-time, unless they want to be going to school for the next 20 years, that would probably not be a realistic thing. But if they have 4 classes that they're missing, why not get those 4 classes and get their diploma?
So really, it's a matter of when you meet with them.
Yes.
At the time they come in and say, I just want to get my high school education. I had to drop out for various different reasons, and I want to get back and improve my life. You sit down with them and go through that evaluation process. They have to provide their transcripts from the school that they did attend up to the point where they dropped out or whatever happened.
It's usually the opposite. Usually people come and say, I want to get my GED. And we first have to say it's not called the GED anymore, it's called the HSE. But we also say, do you know that you could consider getting your high school diploma? And they just don't realize that that's still an option for them because of their age or because of their scheduling needs. So we want to make sure that they know what their choices are.
Now, as we get into the adult ed part, and you're going to have to guide me through it because I keep on what they call the GED. So you're going to have to say, Bill, it's no longer the GED, it's the HED.
HSE, High School Equivalency.
High School Equivalency, okay. So if someone decides to go that route, the high school, do they still need to take the assessment score tests that are available in Indiana?
No, so there is, like in Indiana for the high school diploma, you have to take the end of course assessments or the I-STEPS, or now it's going to be called the I-LEARN.
Oh gosh.
I know, they keep changing the test.
I'll remind you, I was the tech coordinator for Valpo Schools,
yes,
so every time I step, my teeth shatter, oh gosh.
So the test that they take is what they call the TASC test, which is it's the new GED test.
All right.
And so when a student comes to us as an adult education student, they take a placement test. And it gives us a profile of their math abilities, their language abilities, their reading abilities. And then we place them in a classroom according to those skills. So if a student is operating, and about 60% of our adult ed students who come to take the HSE test enter at about an 8th grade or below skill level. So they're very behind. So we have a class really to get them up to that high school level. And the students that are at that high school level, we have a very fast track program to get them ready to take that test. And then we stick with them to get them into college or into careers. So we really look at their needs, and so instead of having 40 classes or 40 credits you have to take, they have to prove competency. So a student maybe doesn't have 40 credits, but they're at a 12th grade level of reading. So we brush up a few things and they're good to go, but maybe they are really bad at math, and so we really focus on math with them. So it's a very different atmosphere for the HSE classroom.
Their schedule is going to end up being quite a bit different from the folks over in the New Vista high school. So because it's really going to matter what they're able to test out, where they're at. Now, let's look at the worst possible case, and I'm sure you get these in. Suppose someone comes in and they don't have 8th grade proficiencies. Do you provide remediation for them, or do you have to refer them somewhere else?
No, we've always been one of the strongest programs in the adult education world for taking students who come up to us at 1st grade level, 2nd grade level. And so that's when I said we have different level classrooms. So we have teachers that are really working with those third, fourth, fifth grade level students, whether it's in English or math or all of the above. And we really look at where they are with their levels and customize their education and their instruction to that level. And it's all done, it's like a one-room schoolhouse. So that bridges class or that foundations class might have students that are working at a third grade level or a seventh grade level. And the teacher does a masterful job at being a pinball in a pinball machine and going between the students and doing some whole group lessons, but then also giving individualized work with the students. And we have a lot of volunteers, and the volunteers make a difference in offering that one-on-one tutoring assistance.
Okay, well, let me take you through, and this may appear to be a little redundant, but I'm trying to keep in mind some of our listeners out there may be at that position where they just got home from the grocery store or what have you, and they say, gosh, man, this sounds intriguing to me. So take us through the process again. I'm sitting at home, and I'm maybe 40 years old, and I really do need to look at what my life is going to be like. I need to improve my life. What is the very first step? Do you have a number that they can call? Yes. What do things that they need to prepare for you before they come see you? Basically,
give us a call, first of all. So our phone number is 219-850-4448, or you can also find us online under Neo Adult Ed, www.neoadulted. The website is a little bit probably more challenging. Just give us a call, and if you want to ask for Rebecca, and I'll talk you through it. They come in and they sit down and they say, I want to get my high school diploma. And we will say, well, you want your diploma or your high school equivalency / GED. And we work through them and we look at what they have, where they left high school, what they remember, if we have to track down their transcripts, or if they want just to go through the HSE program, then they would be scheduled for an intake. So we have, for the adult education program, every Friday at 9 o'clock, students can come in. There's a $25 charge for everything for the whole year. That covers everything. And we do a test and see where they're at. We have conversations and we go from there.
So $25 includes all the classes that they would need, and what about books?
That's all provided part of the adult education funding, yes.
Wow, all right.
And for our high school, I mean, we have free and reduced lunch applications. And compared to some of the high schools that I've heard, it's $250, $500 for a semester for students. I mean, our textbook rental fees and technology fees are about $50 for a term. So it's very different. And again, with free and reduced lunch, that's all adjusted accordingly.
So as I'm thinking of high school again, and this may not apply for the adult ed, but we're going back to the New Vista High School. What about extracurricular activities? Is there anything that you offer in addition to the courses, clubs that they could participate in, something to provide that kind of high school feel, to give them a little social interaction with the other students?
Yeah, we really respond. I mean, because students come to us for a shorter amount of time, it's really dependent on what students at that point in time want. And so we've had an environmental club that's run by like a teacher, because she had a class that was really into that, and they would do the dunes, clean up, things like that. We have student council that's constant. We have a great student council. But we have our current school safety specialist is a basketball coach, and so he does basketball with the students. So it depends on, number one, what the students want, and then what's available in terms of volunteers. I mean, I'd love to get a theater volunteer to come and do an after-school theater program. But for what we do have right now, it's limited in terms of some basketball, some volleyball, student council, Spanish club, art club, a men's mentoring club, a women's club.
Wow, so there's some adult type of clubs out there that. So it's interesting. So there are some social activities for them to partake in.
In the past, we've had a knitting club. We had a debate club last year. One of our teachers was really big on debate. We had a Toastmasters club because one of our English teachers did the Toastmaster, which is all about speeches.
So going forward, again, we're going to get back to this. So again, you're dealing with the person that really wants to improve their life. They decide, gosh, I've got to get back, and I can't even get in the Army without my high school equivalency. And so what type of career planning opportunities do you have there? Do you have guidance counselors that before they even begin the program can say, okay, here's the track that you need to be on post after you get your high school equivalency.
This is the biggest initiative we're taking over the last few years because, again, I would say that the majority of our students are first generation college bound, and so their need of expertise and guidance was huge. And so we hired this year a person just to serve as the college and career coordinator. And so she works very directly with them to prepare FAFSA applications. And we work with United Way to do FAFSA Fridays. We have careers people come in all the time to do presentations. We do field trips to different workplaces like Monosol for advanced manufacturing or Ivy Tech for for colleges. We have career speakers, we have career fairs, and every student is developed a career pathway. There's a website, Indiana Career Explorer, so all students, both high school and adult ed, are on Indiana Career Explorer, and they look at their skills, their interest level, their aptitudes, and then they work with a counselor, both our guidance counselor and our careers counselor, and then all of our students have advisory every day, and so part of our advisory period is about career development and career pathways and college pathways. So there's a lot of focus on that.
Rebecca, we're going to have to take a short break here for our station break, and we'll be back with you very soon. Well, we're back.
That was quick.
Yeah. So as we talk about the adult ed, and we talked about the career planning, and by the way, we're here with Rebecca, who is you're the executive director, is that correct?
Director, yes.
Yeah. And so she's the executive director of NEO, and what that stands for is Neighborhood Neighbors Educational Opportunities.
That's correct.
So going back to the NEO, again, the whole concept. So we have two distinctly different entities, the New Vista High School, and then we also have the Adult Education Program, which is a excellent way. Now, getting to the Adult Education Program, so suppose the person wants to have any type of interest with drafting or CAD, I should say CAD, drafting. Oh my gosh, I pulled that out of my, it's drafting. No one does drafting at CAD or things of that nature. Do you work collectively with any of the Porter County Career Center or somewhere else so they can have those opportunities?
Well, so again, if that's for a high school student, if we had a student that could not do it online or we were not going to offer it, then we would work with the career centers to see if they would accept our students. So you have to become a member. You would have to apply to have a partnership with that career center. And we've done that in the past with the Hammond Area Career Center. We would also look if we had the funds available. So right now, Neighbors Educational Opportunities got a huge workforce development grant called Work Indiana. And so that pays for adult education students to get trainings in certain areas. And so we would look at what the student's interest was and whether it was an in-demand job or occupation. And we would look at the region to see if there was an approved training provider to get that student hooked up with that training. And so we would go that pathway.
So interesting. So as we begin talking about these, I want to come back to funding, because it's always a problem, no matter where you're at, where you're funding. I know, in fact, you see them going up, and they've been controversial as of late, the referendums coming out with covering operating expenses or covering construction expenses. Those are two types of referendums. Being a charter school, you don't exactly have those opportunities. So I've got to ask, where do you get some of the funding for the operational expenses and for the salaries?
Sure. I mean, like almost any adult education program in the region, they're covered by the funds the general funds of a local high school. So whether it's Maryville adult education, being housed with Maryville schools, because the adult education funding is so limited. And I'll get to the high school in a minute, but so we get state and federal dollars for our adult education program. And there are some grants, like we also have a grant for our English language program and for our workforce development, our work training program. But those funds really just cover the cost of instructors and don't cover any of the overhead costs. So the high school really covers that. Unfortunately, we only do get the per pupil reimbursement dollars. We do have special ed funding, we have Title I funding, but unlike other public schools, we don't have any of the local tax dollars that go to support facility and transportation. And so that really cuts significantly into our general funds. I don't know the exact numbers of what local high schools get in terms of the local property tax dollars, but I know it's significant. And so we really depend on running a very lean and efficient operation, but also looking at other alternative sources like local grants. We have Porter County Community Foundation or Legacy Foundation or United Way, Dollar General, different grants like that to support. And we're really looking at building relationships with businesses. So as we move into offering careers in the healthcare facility, trying to find those partnerships with the people in the businesses that we are trying to provide a workforce for.
And part of the operational budget is, of course, staffing. And it's always 75% of any operational budget. One of the things I found kind of intriguing on your website is you actually have a volunteer section.
We have a huge volunteer need, yes.
So, and that can always help with the staffing.
Yes.
You can have aides or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to explain that, how if someone's sitting out there, maybe they're a parent of one of your students, and which they probably know how to by now, but probably there's a elderly person who would love to donate their time. Do you want to explain how they go about doing that?
Sure. We have a lot of ways that people can volunteer with NEO. You said the elderly, so there are many programs in the region, like
I'm covered by that.
like the RSVP,
Yeah,
places where they retrain, the retired person to get a new trade, and they'll place them in an organization like ours. So we've had people who were trying to get retrained in some clerical, so they'll become part of our faculty, but through this other organization. We've had people who have to do community service hours through PACT, and so they come and maybe will help us with some custodial work or with some landscaping. We've had a lot of people from the community come out on United Way Day of Caring. I mean, the day we were moving into our bowling alley, we had First Source and Golden Tech and Rotary, and I mean, people were out in droves supporting what we were doing. If it's an individual, we have a lot of people who are retired teachers that just really miss being in the classroom, but they don't want to go back into teaching. So they might come. I mean, our English as a Second Language program is really popular with volunteers because these students that come from every possible country are so motivated to learn. And so a person that says, I can't teach math, but they can help a person learn English is great. Or tutoring that individual student, or helping out with landscaping. Or if they have a passion, if they want to start a chess club, or if they want to offer their services to start a choir, we'll love to have them.
Choir?
Yeah, choir.
Hear that, Kelly?
Yeah, she's going to work on the theater, the one act plays.
That's good with me.
She's a good singer too, by the way. ESL, let's talk about that because that's it's a given. A lot of you have to provide ESL, but do you want to explain your ESL program and how they get tested when they come in?
We probably have the best English as a Second Language program in the state. Our teachers are amazing. They have a separate test that they take to look at their reading, their writing, and their listening skills, and their speaking skills. And again, we have people who are professionals in their home countries. We've had doctors and psychologists and every profession, to people who are barely literate in their home country too. So we have that huge range. So they come in and we have 3 different levels of English as a Second Language instruction. So if they're totally new to the English language, we have a beginning class where it's total immersion and it's teacher directed, but we also have individualized programs on the computer through a program called Burlington English. They transition as their skills improve to the intermediate class or to the advanced class. And for those people that don't have a high school diploma, a lot of them end up going to either our high school or our high school as high school equivalency program. I mean, one of my favorite stories is we had a woman who came here to the United States. She was actually our commencement speaker last year. She came here because her husband was hired by the government. He was from Afghanistan, and General Petraeus brought him over. She started out in our English language class, could barely speak any English, became fluent within a few years. She had children. They went to our child care program. She got her HSE. She's going on to nursing school. She became a U.S. citizen as part of our citizenship class. So, you know, we have people that go through all parts of the program, and it's just a pretty exciting journey to watch.
So let's backtrack. I've heard you say citizenship class.
That's another part of our adult education program.
Well, before this is over, we'll pull up all these programs you have. So explain that to us.
So, and again, here's another full circle, and I just have to tell this story. So the person who is teaching our citizenship class started at our program 30 years ago when she moved to Portage with her husband. Didn't speak English, started in our English as a second language program, got her GED back then, went to work, and has been our registrar now at our school for 27 years. And now she teaches our citizenship class. So every year I would say probably 10, 12 people become U.S. citizens because of our preparation program.
So it takes some prepping for the test and
it might take 1 or 2 years. It's hard. I mean, some people it takes 3, 4 years because, you know, sometimes their alphabet is different. So not even just looking at the Arabic alphabet.
Going over the Constitution.
Yeah,
yeah, I think there's some Americans that could stand that. Can we send them your way?
Yeah, that's right.
I've got one in particular right now that I think needs a lesson in the civics. Nonetheless, let's talk about it. Now, we've gone over some things. What other programs that we didn't talk about that you want to bring up?
Well, you said we're 2 programs. We're really actually probably 4 or 5 programs because we have the high school, we have the adult education program, but we're also an official testing site for what they used to call the GED. So again, in Porter County, we're the official testing site for that, but we're also the testing site for, you have a high school student who has finished his or her credits in high school, but they did not pass that dreaded high school graduation exam, whether it's the ISTEP or the ECA. So they're out there in the community with all their credits, but they don't have their diploma. So they're either going to study on their own or go to a adult learning program and study for that test. So we're an official testing site for a retesting site for that high school exam. So that's another part. We also are doing different trades and career certifications. So right now we're doing a certified nurse assistant program or nurse aide program. We're going to be offering Microsoft Office certifications. And that's open not just to our high school or our adult ed students, but a lot of times that's open to the community as well. And so we're trying to move more and more into community education. So whether we're going to offer Spanish as a class for the community or computer classes, those are all things that we'll be moving into.
That's amazing. So, and also, do you have programs for maybe someone who already has their high school diploma that just wants to go for a computer class? Or
well, those are the things we're trying to move into. We don't have all those in place now, but that is part of our strategic plan to have that.
Awesome.
So if you have anybody out there that wants to volunteer to teach that, we've got the facility.
Oh boy, yeah, I know quite a few people that, me, I don't know, but yeah, there are probably quite a few people, and gosh, the United Way, we just had them on the show. Absolutely amazing. Some of the programs they have, and these people are probably some of the hardest working folks that you'd ever want to meet as well.
And we're one of their member agencies, so we work really closely. So last year, the Porter County United Way had their first ever, well, we co-sponsored with them, their first ever volunteer fair at NEO, because we have a great facility for that. So we had, I would say, probably 50 different Porter County nonprofits came out, and we're going to be doing that again in February, so that the community, whether it's high school students or college students or retired citizens or anybody who wants to volunteer, can come out and find out all the different places that they could volunteer. Awesome. So we have a real connection with the community, a lot of community partners.
So, been in the building for 5 years, right?
No, we've been in the building 1 year. We moved in last year, 4 months after construction started in August of 2000.
You're right. I'm sorry. Yeah. So, is there anything that still needs to be done? Is there a wish list of things?
Oh, you bet.
So
you have to imagine this building is 70,000 square feet. 70,000. It's a long, long building. We renovated half of that. Part of our building is a 10,000 square foot sportsplex. It's an indoor roller rink. So we have indoor roller hockey, indoor roller derby. We have sports clubs that use it for practice space. So that's a revenue producing thing for us. We also have 10,000 square feet of undeveloped office space that's for rent. But the biggest thing that is on our wish list is we have 10,000 square feet where 8 bowling lanes used to be. We call it the Cavern. And we have plans to expand our vocational trade program. So this is a place waiting for business sponsors and help to develop our healthcare initiatives and our information technology initiatives and our construction trade initiatives. So that's the big wish list.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, and you do have. It's good to know you do have other revenue generating sources out there. So I mean, basketball courts, or is it just?
Well, it's a multi-purpose floor in the sportsplex.
Okay. So if I have a basketball team, or I can contact you and get rates for, and that's availability through the weekend and weekdays. So, and let's talking about weekend and weekdays. Talking about that flexible schedule for your New Vista students. What does that look at? Do you, like, for instance, are there any weekend classes at all?
No, the only thing, I mean, students a lot of times will work on their online classes over at home on the weekends, but we don't offer classes during the week. We'll have special programs that are happening there on the weekends, but not high school or adult education classes.
So some of these courses, and is that specific to New Vista or the adult ed as well?
The adult ed has different online programs too, so both for the English language students and for the adult ed programs, there's always online resources that students can use to advance their studies.
So is it possible that a person could do everything online, or do you require them to come in for some of their courses?
We require them to come in for some of their classes. Yeah.
Okay.
And like their testing, they have to do all their testing with us.
On site with an administrator there to administer the test. Okay, that's obvious. So going through some of the website things I brought through, I found as part of your other programs. Let's talk about a little bit more about Project Neighbors and this outreach, because you're also involved with Project Neighbors. And it's fascinating because you think Paul, who's the executive director for Project Neighbors, would be very intimately familiar with it, but not so much. There's quite a few people here I know that would love to hear more about. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Project Neighbors and what they do and some of their outreach programs that they have.
Well, Project Neighbors has been around for, oh gosh, I mean, since really in one form or another since 1968. It started off as Valparaiso Builders Association that started building some houses for people who were looking for housing that couldn't get housing in Valparaiso. And over the years, it morphed into more housing, and then looking at the needs in the community, whether it was childcare or healthcare. So HealthLink is another product of Project Neighbors, WVLP, the Human Relations Council at VU. We're looking at the, again, they helped start NEO by providing leadership. I mean, the 3 board members, myself and 2 other people, and then the line of credit. They have projects in Mexico, a water project that they support in Mexico. I know I'm forgetting a million of them.
And
but, they also helped with the women's housing project.
On Calumet across.
No. But they also have we have the women's single resident, the women's place, the neighbor's place for single residents, occupancies for women. So there's like 30 some women in these different buildings. They're not shelters. It's small, like 400 square foot a single room apartment for women.
Going back to NEO, what is the relationship like between Project Neighbors and NEO now? What type of support do they still offer, or was it one of these things that they helped out financially at the beginning and backed off? How is that relationship still going on today?
I mean, there's a lot of overlap because Project Neighbors is right now working on a very progressive agenda for a better community. And so as education is one of the initiatives under that agenda, they're looking at places that can actually affect change, and having local control at the level we do at New Vistas and at NEO, that we can really start having real conversations that matter to students. So again, whether it's taking a workshop on diversity and inclusion and really expanding that into curriculum and expanding that into parent conversations. So it's a symbiotic relationship. It's not really necessarily anything that they are governing right now, but there's a lot of support. So For example, as we're looking at fundraising and raising money through what they call NAP credits, we have a lot of Project Neighbors board members help support NEO in that way.
And then there's the PAC program and some of the other things that they're involved in as well. So that's interesting. So let's talk about, now we've gone through all this, now let's talk a bit about Rebecca. And I know what it's like, administrator at the secondary level it is challenging. So any future plans to get away, travel?
Yes.
Cool.
I am. I'm going to Barcelona the day after Christmas.
Barcelona.
If there's we'll see what's happening with the election over there.
Yeah, I was about to say that's pretty gutsy of you to go over there right now, but that's great.
That's big on my list.
How about the kids? How are they doing?
They're doing great. I have a daughter who lives here in town. She's a nurse at St. Mary's. I have a daughter who lives out in Portland, Oregon. She's a communications specialist by day and a rock and roll singer by nighttime.
Great.
So she'll be coming out for very shortly. So they keep me very busy, and they're wonderful.
Great.
And my mother is wonderful. She lives with me, and so she keeps me on my toes. I can't keep up with the woman. She's 88 years old, so.
Well, we try to find out a little bit more about the people that come on just than what they do. So Mayor Costas could tell you about that because he wanted to talk about the city. We wouldn't let him talk about the city. So that was kind of an interesting interview. One sure that he won't forget. But with that, we have some new guidelines now with the new equipment where we actually have to close out the show 10 minutes before the hour. So anything else that you want to share with us prior to
I
close?
just would really encourage, anybody who first of all would like to learn more to give me a call. Just call the number 850-4448 and ask for Rebecca. We're going to be doing bi-weekly open houses starting in December or January so people can learn more about our programs and get involved as volunteers. We're really trying to build partnerships with businesses because we know that the work readiness of a lot of employees is just not where it's supposed to be, so we want to work with businesses. And especially if you have students in your lives, whether you are one yourself or you have children or relatives or friends who aren't in school or who need to get remediation to get back into college or careers, please give us a call. We are open all the time for you.
We just have a few more minutes left, but we'd be probably remiss if we don't mention some of the partnerships that you already have with maybe neighboring businesses in the area.
Yeah, we work really closely with, like I said, we're a United Way member agency. We work real closely with LULAC, which is the League of United Latin American Citizens, with North Shore, Project Neighbors. We are very closely affiliated with Work One and some of their initiatives. We work with, let's see, I'm trying to think of some other close businesses, but those are some of the major ones.
So are you
and PACT, we work with PACT very closely.
And are you looking for any maybe commercial type relationships, some that to provide some maybe help with the building or private funding?
Well, that's always, again, we have the potential for this incredible trade center because you do have these wonderful vocational area career centers, but that's for your traditional K through or high school student.
Right.
So for that adult who wants to get retraining or for that older high school student, we have this capacity to build something brand new, something innovative that really responds to the needs of the area. So we're really looking for those community partners that would like to get involved and like to be part of the process of planning and developing a very unique program.
Well, I appreciate everything you shared with us today. This has been amazing. I hope that everyone knows more about NEO now and Project Neighbors. And so if they have any questions, they know where to go. Rebecca, it's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much, Bill. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And with that, we'll have to close out the show. This is Bill Moran from The Bill Moran Show, and we wish you a safe week and weekend.
Bill Moran Show on WVL.
Is it only Porter County that this is with, or is it other county areas?
Oh, through Porter Lake County, LaPorte County, yeah.
I missed part of that.
Yeah, no, it's It's a wonder. I mean, the students really talk about, you know, the kids that come from Porter County, it's like they're finally interacting with minority students. The minority students are getting to know these honkies, you know. So it's wonderful. And our faculty is so diverse. I mean, incredibly diverse. And it's a very joyful place. So come on up. I mean, again, you know, just I'll leave some information, but just reach out and come on over and see, because we're going to be doing these weekly tours, trying to build up our volunteer base, because there's so many opportunities for the community input. So,
do you know of anything going on with like the unions and things like the electrical unions?
Well, that's what the trade, the whole thing about the trade. Yeah, so we're working right now with some of the area apprenticeship programs.
Okay.